It's okay to have an obsession. I dive into my craziest, imaginative and plain stupid obsessions. Mentally Obsessed is a podcast in which people can share and relate to obsessions anytime, anywhere. Obsessing over a game? I'll talk about it. Obsessed with World of Warcraft? Yeah, me too. Whenever the opportunity arises, I also interview celebrities or people of interest. So, what are you waiting for? Let your obsession reign free. And if you like what you hear, consider following and sharing with friends. Come nerd out with us too on Twitter at Mentally Obsess. My next guest is the voice in the 5v5 Riot Games tactical shooter Valorant. Effie Nkrumah talks all about Astra, my main and my favourite character. Hello Effie, how are you doing?
I'm great, Rhys. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. So how's the COVID situation?
We got let out of lockdown 2 weeks ago now, a week ago. So it's a bit surreal because so many of us are still working from home. So it's like, I've forgotten what it means to go out. What are these roads like? But I mean, I think, we've handled it. And I feel like, it's given everyone a new appreciation for life.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I never went out, still haven't gone out since we come out of lockdown. Like, everyone's just stopped wearing masks as well. Like, it's not mandatory anymore, but I'm still like, why aren't you wearing masks? This thing's still a problem.
Yeah. There are days when I walk out of my bedroom and I'm like, something's missing. Oh, I'm not wearing my mask.
It's just become like a part of our lives now, wearing a mask.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll dive into the first question, and it is, what drove you to apply for the role for Astra and Valorant?
Okay, so I didn't, how do I say this? I got invited to an audition for Astra. A good friend of mine called me and she actually thought it was for a radio play. And so she gave me a call and said, there's this radio play that I think you can go and audition for. And I was like, okay, that sounds interesting. So I went, and when I found out that it wasn't for a play, but for a game and for a character, and for a character that was actually Ghanaian, and I was like, I have to give this my absolute best shot because I love this idea. So yeah, I love what Astra stands for, who she is. She's so close to me in many ways. And as a Ghanaian who grew up in diaspora, people talk a lot about this question of whether representation matters. Mm-hmm. And I feel like if it doesn't matter to you, that's good, but it does matter to some people. And I'm one of the people that it matters to. And so it was really lovely to think that as a performer, there was a role that actually represented things that I live and that I experience and I'm close to.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's definitely important to people from all different kinds of the world. It's definitely, especially Black people, really important, especially what's going on in the world today.
And to make it so specific, I really respect creatives that pay attention to the specifics, because I believe that specificity is universal. The more specific you can get, the more people can understand, which is weird, but I feel like it worked. And in this, they were very careful and very intentional about making sure that Astra has specific ethnic background in terms of her Ghanaian heritage, which is great. And yet she's able to do what a lot of Ghanaians can do, and that's represent all of us. And in a time where people are now starting to think more about what the continent of Africa is, that it's more than South Africa. It's not a country. It's great that they chose somewhere like Ghana, which holds such historical significance in terms of the global Black diaspora, in terms of sporting, in terms of political history and the independence of Africa. I think it's great that they chose Ghana. So yeah. That's me rambling, but...
It's fine. You're from Ghana yourself, aren't you?
I am, yes. Both my parents are Ghanaian, even though I grew up in Australia. And I lived there for just under 10 years, about 9 years I lived in Ghana. Just before I left just this year, and we'll hope to return sort of when the situation around the world sort of calms down a bit in terms of travel. It's very close to my heart in many ways. My parents never hid our background from us. We celebrated it all the time, and I'm really grateful for that.
Which I don't think your parents should hide it anyway. That's really bad that some people will have to hide their heritage.
Yeah. Or that some people feel reluctant to celebrate or share it. And I think that makes life even more difficult, because at a point in time, I think, I mean, this is really a wild stat, but I think at a point in time, 60 to 80% of diasporans, regardless of what you're a diaspora of, which country or ethnic group you're a diaspora of, will ask the question about the identity. Who am I really? And if you don't ask it, I think there's a point where you'll be confronted with a piece of information that just makes you go, oh my gosh, that's what that is in me or my mom or dad or siblings, or that's what that question that I've actually never realized I was asking internally was. But yeah, I love that my parents really tried to make sure we had an understanding of it.
Did you have any interests in the video game industry?
It's so weird. I don't know how to explain it. It's not something that I'm not a gamer. I don't get up and think about gaming. And yet, because I'm a performer and a creative, and in terms of genres of books or films, I do have a real interest in fantasy, in terms of the aesthetics and the themes, but also, I guess, in action. And when I say action, I'm not an action movie. Like, I will pick a drama or a rom-com over an action film any day. But I do love teamwork and competition and sort of like, the greater good and all of that. And I think all of that comes into gaming. Perhaps if I had a bit more time, or if I had friends that were also into it, I feel like I might have been a gamer.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still more time in life, so maybe I will become one.
Do you think Valorant would increase your chances of becoming a gamer, or at least trying games?
Oh, yes. I have been trying to just take time to play Astra myself, but I feel like, okay, so this is the thing. From what I know of the game and of what I know of Astra, she's one of the more complicated ones, and you do need a team. She needs a team. She's not the easiest to play, not solo. There's a word you have for it.
Competitive or...
yeah, there are two levels, right?
Yeah, you've got unrated and competitive.
Yeah, so I think from what I when I was researching and kind of trying to understand how the gaming community, or the Valorant community rather, took to the agent, I realized a lot of people said she's better in a team. And that's me. I love teamwork. And so I guess it's just a matter of finding the right time to get together with some people who play it and learning, and probably maybe just starting off really slowly.
So you kind of answered this a bit, but did you ever have knowledge of Valorant before applying for the role? Well, getting invited.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I had no knowledge of it. The closest I got was League of Legends. And that's because when I read up about it after the audition, I thought, oh, wow. I thought, oh, I've heard of League of Legends. And that, after seeing the original mock-up of what Astra was going to look like and all of that, I was like, oh, I've got to research this more because it sounds so fascinating. And I wasn't disappointed. I think I saw the video. I don't remember what the trailer was for, but it was like a trailer with Yoru and a couple of other characters that I was like, oh, awesome.
Oh, yeah, that was like the announcement trailer, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I'm sure. And it had mainly game playing, because these days they do like a cinematic like reveal of a new agent. They've been doing that quite a lot lately.
Yeah, it was so I remember Phoenix and Yoru and the agent with the white hair. I think she's the Korean one.
Jet.
But I can't remember her name. Yeah, Jet. Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to get on this. I was like, God, please let this be me, because it's too exciting.
What inspired you or drove your interests in acting?
I think it's intrinsic. I think it's my calling. It's my gifting. I think it's what God's blessed me with. You know, I think everybody has their talent and gifting, and mine happens to be for performance, and for performative or creative disciplines. And so I don't feel like it was a choice. Obviously, at a point in time, I mean, I also love people and hospitality and serving. So I know that by the time I was finishing high school, it was a question of whether I was going into hospitality as a, you know, what they were all saying as my foundation, and then pursuing performance because everybody knew. And that's, I'm saying that with quotation marks, that, you know, the arts doesn't pay and all of that. And so, you know, I tried commercial kitchens for a couple of work experience trips at school, and I realized that the passion for the arts and for communicating and telling stories and helping people through that gifting is the passion for that is far greater. So that's why I pursued it as a career.
Did you ever have to go to LA to record the voice lines for Astra, or did they do it all remotely? How did that work?
I recorded everything in Ghana, in Accra, in a studio there with a really great engineer they call him Kofi the Beatmaker, or Beatmaker Menace, I think. I've got to check with him what his actual name is, but Kofi really helped a lot. He had the right equipment. So yeah, this was getting to a year ago now. So I think January 2021. And at that time, there were a lot of border closures and so on because of COVID. So traveling wasn't really, I mean, it was possible, but just not, you know, the best option. So once the team knew that I could get the right microphones and have great, you know, studio space, I recorded everything remotely in Accra.
Is there any particular person that inspired you or drove your interests into acting?
I think at different points, different things inspire me. I'm not the kind of person that has ever has one object or person in mind as a driving force. And that's just me. I pull from so many different sources. And this is probably one question that I'll go back and be like, oh, I could have said that. I could have said that. Off the top of my head, there's a woman whose name I've now forgotten. She was a Ghanaian actress. She was in a movie called Heritage Africa, made in the 80s, one of Ghana's best films, just before things sort of got difficult again, and at a time when the arts still had a chance at great funding and so on. And she plays a mother of a son in colonial times who kind of abandons his culture because he gets a job working for the British. And there's this one scene that she acts out where, you know, she's calling him back and he's walking away from her. And it just, it was so real, so real. And I think those are the kind of performers that just make my heart beat really fast. Sometimes I can watch a scene of dancers, you know, in a movie or on YouTube, and it can bring me to tears. I just feel like performance in and of itself is the inspiration, telling a story and making people having an effect on people to make them think about life differently or experience life differently always moves me a lot. So yeah, I wish I could say, oh, there's this actress, like this one person, or it's Denzel Washington or whatever, but I think it changes.
Yeah.
There's always something to be inspired, to take inspiration from everyone that I watch, I guess.
In your opinion, how can someone maintain their mental well-being in this industry? I
pray a lot. It's a space where I don't think you're ever really prepared for something till it happens. And I think that especially as performers, you know, we can do what we do because we're so empathetic, I believe. I don't know if you can be a great performer, and that's different to being a famous performer or a celebrity.
Mm-hmm.
There are many fantastic performers that no one knows, right? But I think to be a truly great performer, you have to have a very high sense of empathy, observation, emotional connection. I think some of the greatest comedians and actors and dancers wear their hearts on their sleeves. And I think that's why the space can be dangerous or difficult to navigate at times, because you're always having to bring your emotions to the fore, and therefore you're not always protected. I know everybody has their way, but I pray. I am a Christian, and it's what has kept me grounded and kept me close to my craft. If I didn't have the faith I have, I honestly think I would have just gone for a really stable, predictable, high-paying job that would have had me in a great position right now. But I feel like by sticking to this path, I'm living out my purpose. And no matter how hard it gets, I know I can always just go back down on my knees and just say, I really need help. I'm not getting through this. I'm not dealing.
Mm-hmm.
And then my family and very, very close friends also, who really understand me and my idiosyncrasies and my nuances and my flaws that make me the performer I am. These are things that keep me anchored and help my mind to deal with what at times can be really painful situations. And I say that probably because my experience of the performing arts acting industry is very different to a lot of others for many, many, many reasons. Not everyone, I think, has to be as vigilant of what's happening with their mind as I do. Just because I have a lot of things to think about. There's the whole double conscious thing, which is very real for people of color, for Black people of color. Then you add that you're a woman and you're not just Black as in American, but you're also African. So there are a lot of questions that you have. Did I not get the role because of my height? Did I not get it because of my color? Did I not get it because,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I find that being connected to the purpose and the calling and the fact that every time I go on my knees, I'm like, God, I don't know what's happening anymore right now. Someone sends a DM and says, I main Astra and I love your voice lines and it's so great. Or, oh, I saw some of your poetry and it's really helped me. Or, oh, I read something you wrote. And then I'm like, okay, it's not in vain. Like,
Yeah.
It's not in vain. It's helping people. And so I'll be all right.
Sorry to bring down the mood, but obviously I like to talk about mental health because this podcast is obviously about mental health, and I always ask that question because like I said, some people have different approaches to maintaining their mental well-being. I haven't found the correct way as of yet because I still have my doubts, I still have my worries.
Yeah, and it's you know what? I mean, I feel like, you know how they say everybody has some kind of mental challenge?
Yeah.
And I really do think that it's because that's where everything starts and ends in your mind. If you don't think you can do it, chances are, if you don't overcome it in your mind, you can't, you can do it, but you won't do it because you haven't overcome it in your mind. And I think that as someone who, so to be very, very honest, I have a lot of people who would have been in my life prior to the last, let's say, 4 years, that would see me today and not recognize me. And not necessarily because I've changed physically that much, apart from maybe getting a bit older and bigger. But more like there's just a visible shift in how I look at things and address things. And that wouldn't have been if I hadn't gone through extremely difficult times in my mind. Because prior to let's say 2015, maybe, I was extremely positive. And people used to always say, I don't really drink and all that because my energy is quite high. And people always like, how are you happy and you're not drinking, da, 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 da. And, sort of, how do you always have this energy? And it was just this internal joy because I was doing what I felt I was called to do.
Yeah.
And I think what that did was blind me to sort of the reality that, one, not everyone will like you. Two, not everyone will want to like you. There are people who will work really hard not to like you.
Yeah.
3, you have to understand that everyone has a different view or experience of life, and that's what informs them and their decisions and their behavior. And I think that if you are living above that understanding all the time, you can hurt people, and then you render yourself super vulnerable to being hurt as well. And so if you don't have any point in your life where you have to overcome something mentally, I think you've lost an opportunity to connect with people, to help people, to change or shift paradigms, and to really become your absolute best. You kind of have to go through those battles. And so as painful as they can be, as difficult as they can be to overcome and push through, I think they are what help form you. Some people will say to your highest self. Some people would say into a moment of self-actualization. I would say into your purpose, which is really important to me because I've said it like 50 times today. Hey, but yeah, I think we need these challenges. We need to go through them to get stronger, literally, to keep pushing through.
Yeah. It increases your armor, basically.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I didn't. I think I shared with you that I was going through a bit of a, tough period. And a lot of people who heard Astra probably wouldn't know that I was at a really, really down, like low point in my life when I got the role. And the chance to be that joyful, strong person again, even though it was through another character, was so helpful. It was like being my old self again. It was great. And so to know that I could do that when the first couple of days I was, quite unwell, not with COVID, thank goodness, but I was recovering from exhaustion and trauma. And so, yeah, like how great to say that I could push through that and offer something that people really, really love.
And I think that's like the importance of it as well. Like going through such a bad time, you're still able to bring the joy and happiness that is Astra.
Yeah, because it's in there, right? I don't think we're ever just one thing at a time. There are. Your body is one. There is so much happening in your spirit and your soul and your mind. And it's kind of like, how people talk about out-of-body experiences or whatever. I think that's, the best way to explain, like, just the fact that at any one time, there's your joyful self, there's your melancholic self, there's your sanguine self, and so on. And at any one time in your life, one of them is dominating, and you have to decide and you make a decision of which one it's going to be. And so, yeah, it was good for me to know that, okay, she's still there.
I imagine it. Have you ever seen Teen Titans before? You might not know.
I haven't, but I feel like I've seen something similar to it. But do go on with the example and maybe I can.
It's just on an episode, Raven has, her father is really evil, basically, and her personality was splitting into all these different sides of herself. So basically, Pink was really happy. I can't remember exactly how the characters were reacting, but I always see it like that. Like, I always feel like my personality is split sometimes, and one's at the front taking over my emotions and things like that. And I think that's basically what my disorder is, really. I think it was, they said it was emotional dysregulation disorder I have. But I think that's just to do with how my emotions are always over the place, and some things can affect me more than the average person, or it's weird, but that's just how I would describe how my personalities and emotions react to things.
That sounds spot on. Like, I mean, it does make me wonder, depending on the society, I feel like there are times where people cannot handle people whose emotions are visible.
Yeah.
Whether it's on their face or in their body language. And I think that can be extremely challenging. I've experienced that being in a space where it's like, if you show how you feel, it's a sign of weakness.
Yeah.
And also something that can be annoying to other people. Oh my gosh, you're so emotional. But it's like, well, I had to really sit down, sort of get clarity. Like, is this a problem? And I was like, no, God made me just as I am. And that means I'm good. It means I am exactly who and what I should be. And it was like, as I was thinking through that, he was just showing me all these little things like, yeah, if you weren't able to feel emotions acutely the way you do, you wouldn't be able to write the kind of writing that people read and go, I felt this, or I've been this, or I've lived this. This is it, you know? If I wasn't able to say, I'm so sad, I'm going to go write 3 poems, you know, the world would be 3 poems short.
Have you found that writing poems has helped?
Yeah. I used to journal a lot when I was younger, and then I'd stop for a bit and then pick it up again and so on. And I, for about maybe 4 years, 5 years now, when things are just too much, I start writing poems. And, you know, I don't know if they're, like I said it to people before, I don't really know if structurally they're actually poems, but whatever they are, they're not sort of prose.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of writing in there somewhere. Rhyming, sorry. And so when I do sort of write them out or you know, make a video or a voiceover or whatever with them, you know, I find people go, oh yeah, that was great. And so writing the poetry has been important for me because it helps me to use as many interesting words as possible to explain or describe how I feel. And I recently worked on a little body of work that I was like, I have to describe what I feel I look like.
Right.
From the inside. And it was very helpful. These are things you can't kind of say in a normal conversation, like, I feel like I'm drowning, you know?
Yeah. I get what you mean.
And so when you put it in a poem, it's like, yeah, that's exactly how it feels.
It's more easy to convey how you're feeling in a poem.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, because there are no rules. Like let me not say no one. Very few people speak poetically on a daily basis in conversation.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you can use the words that someone would be like, what are you saying? But in a poem, it's like, that makes sense.
My brother's autistic and he finds it easier to convey how he's feeling in a poem. He's really, really good at writing poems.
Oh, I'd love to read some.
I'll have to send you some over.
Yeah, I'd be honoured to read some. Yep.
So what is the question that you want to be asked that no interviewers ask?
Oh my gosh. Gee, what question has no one ever asked me? This is going to sound so boring. I'm really sorry, Rhys and listeners, but I don't think I have one.
No, that's fine. That's completely fine. Yeah. It was right on the spot, and mostly people have I don't know what to say, and I sit here for about 10 minutes, like, what do I say? A thing that people have said most of the time is like they've never really asked me anything on a personal level. Like, for example, like they've never asked me. That's what Katia said, I believe, who voiced Mia Winters from Resident Evil Village. I can't remember at the top of my head, but she said she wanted it to not be personal, but, you know, something about her and what she achieved, etc. But that was just an example. Or someone said, I've never been asked where in the future or past I'd like to go.
An interesting one. Yeah, that's a good question. Where in the past, maybe not the future yet, because I don't know what that looks like. Yeah, where in the past would I like to go? That's a good question that I've never been asked.
Where would you like to go in the past?
Now I have to answer it. Hey.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel like there are two answers.
Go ahead.
So one would be like back to when I was about, I'd say 17.
Mm-hmm.
I could go back to 17 and start all over again.
Yeah.
From 17. Yeah, I'd be very happy to do that.
I'd love to do that too. Go back to being 17. A lot of things I'd do differently.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like by that time, that's when I started just doing things that I'm like, oh, really should have chosen that instead.
Yeah.
Where in the past? Well, my dear, I feel like I'm answering this just because of a series that I'm currently watching, so it might change in a couple of weeks. If I could go back in time, would I really be interested in that? Okay, well, let me just say it because it came top of mind. But like ancient China.
Ooh, that sounds really interesting.
Yeah, I'm really into culture and how and where things evolve and change and how things were as practical or impractical as they were before modernization. And I feel like that would be such a diverse time to experience and to witness. And I don't like that. I feel a bit like I'd be watching them as like, oh, that's how they do things. But yeah, I would have really liked to have experienced that. And also I feel like food would taste so different back in the day than it does now, right? Yeah. And I really do love the few the few Chinese cuisines I've tried, Szechuan and the Hong Kong and all that. So I'd love to see what dishes I love now tasted like back then.
Yeah. Oh, I love like Chinese culture and Japanese and Korean culture. Yeah. Like I grew up watching Chinese films. Like my mom introduced me to the Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I absolutely loved that film when I was younger. Memoirs of a Geisha and things like that. Yeah.
So I'm watching this Mandarin one at the moment called The Princess Wei Young. Yeah, The Princess Wei Young. Mm-hmm. And I mean, super dramatic, but like as I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, I wonder if this is true. So I start Googling, some of the phrases and the kingdoms that they mention. I'm like, oh, these were real.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. Wow. But the music's amazing as well, isn't it? Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah. Like and the acting is...
they're really good, really, really good. Like I absolutely love the Eru, which is like a Chinese violin. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. And bamboo flutes. Oh, they all sound...
Oh my gosh.
They're brilliant to the ear. Brilliant.
Yeah. Yes, and the sort of the colour. Mm-hmm. Sorry?
No, carry on you first.
Oh, I mean, I was just going to say the colours, the scenery and how much attention they pay to beauty and the concept of beauty, as with floral things and embroidery and, how royalty hold their cups when they have to drink. And it's just so detailed and lovely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I was going to ask, have you watched Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon before?
I haven't.
You should watch
that. And that goes back to the question about action. Mm-hmm. It's not something I choose first. So now that I've started watching the genre, the films, I might try it. But was that a Hollywood movie or a Chinese movie?
I'm sure it was the Chinese movie. It's got Chinese actors in it and everything.
Yeah, that's Jet Li and I think I'll give it a go because you've recommended it. I'm going to add it to my list of things to watch that I should have watched 10 years ago.
If you like romance, it's got some romance in there too.
Perfect, because we all know Effie loves romance.
Oh yes, I'm sure. I'm not sure what
I'm watching.
I'm not sure what the genre of the film is. I'm sure it's an action romance, but I'm not 100% sure.
I'm gonna check now that you've said it, so that we can all like be at peace.
So yeah, it's got like romance in it, adventure, action. It's got some fantasy in it, drama.
Okay, so it goes under martial arts, action, drama, romance. You said like 3 of those, and
Yeah.
then something called wuxia.
Yeah.
I hope I pronounced that correctly. Yeah. So yeah, it's all of it. Okay, I'm gonna watch it, and I'll send you a message when I've watched it. Oh, I'm 21 years late. That's how late I am to watching this. Okay, well done.
It
Has that
is
time passed since it came out?
Pardon?
It's only 2000, Rhys.
I was born in 1990.
Oh my goodness.
I watched it quite young.
That's really young.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't watch it like when it first come out. I think I watched it like when I was a bit older. I can't remember, but I do remember specifically watching that film and absolutely loving it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely going to. Okay, thanks for the recommendation.
No, it's fine.
Oh, and fantasy's in it as well.
Yes.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, fantasy. I think it's more the sword, the martial art that make it more fantasy.
Yeah.
Well, it is a really good. It's really good.
Oh, wait, I'm going to give it a go.
So, next question is, what does the day in the life of Effie look like? Do you have any daily routine? And I'm only asking this because I lack daily routine. Like, I'd get up, lie in bed, depressed most of the day, like no motivation at all. And I want to hear from people how they construct their day.
You know, I was going to say, I don't think I have a daily routine, but the one thing I know I do every single day when I wake up and before I go to sleep is pray. I pray for my family, my friends, the world when I can remember not to be selfish and pray for other people. And for me, it's not as mystical as people would think it is, or mystical might not be the right word, but it's not as religious. It's literally me just pouring my heart out and just talking to God.
Yeah.
If I didn't sleep too well or whatever, I'll wake up and just pray. And so that's something I do. As soon as I wake up, it's the first thing I do. So that whatever's bothering me or whatever I'm grateful for, I've kind of addressed it in order to move on through the day. Previously, I would have gone straight to where I worked, which was a theatre company. But I'm not there at the moment. I've had to travel out. So for now, apart from praying, I love food and I'm a very heavy breakfast person. Yeah. I'm not really small, weak breakfast. I need like a big plate of rice or, noodles or grits and toast, something like that.
Yeah.
So I love heavy breakfasts. And then depending on what I have to do, whether it's work or work. And, that's in different areas. I have a clothing business that I run. Sometimes I have lines to learn and videos to film for auditions because of COVID. We can't really go to studios to audition anymore. So you have to film yourself. Yeah. Which can take quite a bit of time if you're new to it, getting your lighting right and your position right and making sure the background's empty and all of that. So I spend time doing that. I keep in contact with my close friends quite a fair bit through, emails and WhatsApp. I'm not on social media, but back then I probably would have checked my social media and posted and all of that. Yeah. But I'm taking a break from that. Yeah, so a bit, I don't know, it sounds a bit haphazard, but I've never been straightforward straightforward's the wrong word, straight cut. I've always moved with how I feel. There are definitely days, like you said, where I just don't want to think about anything. And I would rather stay asleep so that I don't have to think. And I read something recently. It said, let me see if I can find it, but I feel like it really helps to explain how I can feel some days. Okay, I can't. Okay, it's gone. But it was something along the lines of a lady who was saying that her therapist said to her that a lot of Black women don't recognize when they're experiencing anxiety or depression, because they just feel like they're failing. And I think that's something that, I really identify with. That when you're starting fresh, or you've not landed a role in a while or whatever, it can start to feel really like it's really hard some days. But I find that once I've prayed about it and asked God for peace and sort of the strength to like get going again, I always hear from someone or read something or get an idea that motivates me to get up and get going. That's something I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
So that's it. Oh, and I drink a lot of water all the time. I have a 1 liter bottle.
Yeah.
That I fill a few times a day. Has Ghanaian Adinkra symbols on them that help me with some of the principles I like to stay close to, like endurance and resourcefulness, going and readiness and being steadfast, having wisdom, intelligence and patience, keeping communication and human relations open, and having a tolerant heart. That's the one I'm drinking from today.
Oh, so there's different versions of the bottle.
Yep. So I have another one. There's another one that's about strength. There's another one I have that's about, God's guidance and his supremacy and his love and care. So yeah, depending on sort of what I feel I need to be meditating on or using as my strength to get through, I just look at the bottle and then drink some water.
I don't drink water often, like water, but depends, because tap water here in the UK doesn't taste very nice. And like, it'd be so expensive to buy bottled water.
I totally get that. I think you can get there are different filters, and depending on your budget, you can get ones that are like connected to your tap and they can filter the water and it tastes far better. There are also ones that it's like a special bottle that filters the water for you when you fill it up, and you can fill up another bottle from there or a glass or whatever. So I'd look into something like that because it's really good for you. And I find that there are times that I feel quite tired and I realize, I haven't had a drink of water, and just a cup or 2 cups of water and you feel far, far better.
Yeah, definitely start drinking more water then, because I'm always I'm always tired. My bones starting to ache, and then I found out, because I'm absolutely interested. I love biology, and I'm currently watching The Good Doctor, which I was sobbing at the other day. I found out that when you drink water, it like lubricates the bones, and when you don't have water and you're dehydrated and things, the bones start to rub together.
There you go.
That's why you need to drink water, ladies and gentlemen.
I mean, your body is what, 75% water? And you'll find that the more you start drinking water, the more you really appreciate it. And actually sort of when you do drink a glass or some from your bottle, you're like, oh, that's actually really good.
Yeah.
Tea. I love tea.
Oh, tea. I do love me a good cuppa.
Yeah, and different types. And there's also this thing my mum and I love doing, and that's just a mug of hot boiled water. Sounds weird, but once a day with a little bit of lemon in it or just on its own, that can just make you feel really great if you don't feel like, making a cup of just hot water after a meal or something. Brilliant.
Would you say that helps the metabolism?
I think it does greatly. And also, if you're someone who feels the cold, which I do, I mean, I can wear long sleeve tops in an Australian summer. So I do sort of find that it helps sort of warm you up a bit. It definitely clears the system. But it's also a bit relaxing, especially if you have it, you know, in the evening, about an hour after you've had your dinner or something.
One thing I need to stop doing is eating before I get to sleep. I don't know.
Goodness,
If that's causing, because I'd mentioned before we'd started recording that you're having heartburn in the minute, acid reflux.
Yeah, I think that's the answer, right? And I hear that. I don't know how true this is. Maybe one of your listeners can tell you, or maybe I'll Google it. But I have heard randomly somewhere before that it can also affect like how you sleep. Because like whether you're having a peaceful sleep or you have like random nightmares. I don't know how true that is, but I do know. Yeah, that the body is then very confused because it's trying to work on digesting the food, but it's supposed to be resting.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I have so many bizarre dreams. Like, I could make movies out of my dreams. And and sometimes dreams have actually tried to inspire me to like either write a story about it or do like a podcast series. Have you heard of The Two Princes or that kind of genre of podcast where they voice act in the podcast?
Oh, no, but I like the sound of that.
I was thinking of doing one of those about one of my dreams, but I was like, oh, I'm not very good at voice acting. But I've always thought to myself, like, I want to get into acting. Like, I loved acting in school when I was in my first year of secondary school. I loved it, and because I got bullied and everything, that kind of killed my confidence.
Yeah.
And then I was like, no, I'm too scared to act now.
Oh gosh, get to it. That makes the best acting.
Yeah,
Experiences to draw from.
So
I'm looking forward to hearing that podcast.
It is in the works, but I don't know if it's actually going to happen because I was going to find people who could voice act in there as well, because I didn't want to act all the characters. I basically just wanted to be the main character.
Yeah.
But I was looking for people. I was looking on Fiverr, and I was like, I just don't have the budget to do it. Like, it's too much money to pay people.
Okay, yeah. I get that. Makes sense. But I'm sure you can find a lot of people who'd be willing to volunteer.
Hope so. Hope I could.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I personally think it's an okay story. I'm not going to say it's a perfect story because that will make me seem narcissistic, but it's okay. It's not too bad.
If it's good, it's good.
Yeah. So I was going to ask if the last question is, what's one of Astra's voice lines that you remember off the top of your head? That everyone...
Yeah, there's a couple they always ask for. Okay, the main one, there are two actually that kind of have equal love. Calling them in. And then I call you, what is it now? Give me a second. It does take me a second to remember. I call you Charlie because you're my friend, but maybe I should call you Jimmy. Oh no, that was the original line. Sorry, let me do the actual line. I call you Charlie because you're my friend, but maybe I should call you Kwasia because you fool.
I love that line.
Yeah, everybody's like, I love that line.
Look, the thing about Astra when I'm playing her is that she's always vocal, and she just gives me a bit of an uplift. Like, I mean, I don't enjoy killing people in games or anything like that, but when I finally finish clutch around, or I've killed the enemy team and I've got a victory, and she's like, ha, yeah, like after she's got the clutch and things, I feel really good about it. I feel she just gives you an uplift.
Yeah, I think she what did she say? I'm on a different level, Charlie. Literally.
Yeah.
Like her mind and everything, she just sees things from a different perspective. And for her, I think it's about the team and the fact that, yeah, like I planted, like, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. She sees things differently. I think that's what gives her joy.
And I'd be lying in bed, just about to get to sleep, and then I'll just randomly blurt out a line from Astra. Like, especially like, Trinity, you're welcome. That one's my favourite one. Like, I absolutely love that one.
I love hearing what different people like. It's wonderful.
That was my attempt to voice it.
It was a good attempt.
Thank you. I heard it from the actress myself. I'm going to put that on my resume.
Please do. top of it.
Well, that's all the questions I have for you today. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, you're awesome. It's been great. I didn't think I'd talk that much, but I've learned a bit. So thanks.
It's always like that. I'm like, oh, usually mine lasts between 20 to 30 minutes. Normally, like sometimes they go for an hour. Like one interview I did was an hour and 30 minutes because we had so much to talk about and to vibe on, which is great. That's what I love about interviewing people. It's because I vibe with them.
That's right. You have this. Your questions are good to start with. They're not weird questions. They're questions that make you think deeply, and then you start ranting. But also, you're great to have a conversation with because you share, and I think that's what makes for good interviewing when it doesn't feel like answer this question on to the next. It feels like a conversation, and so that's why I was saying I've learned a bit because you've shared some things as well that have made me sort of like after this I'm going to go and reflect a bit and think through and read up, and so I feel like we've shared. It doesn't feel like it was just an interview; it was a sharing experience. So thank you.
And that's what I pride myself on this podcast. This podcast is about talking about mental health, but it's also about making my guests feel happy and I feel like they're not being like poked at personal questions and like they don't feel like constricted. Like I don't know. I'm trying to find the correct word to use, but. That's what I pride myself on.
Yeah, and you should. Actually, nearly got emotional at a point.
Oh, no, like in a good way or a bad way, like.
Oh, in like a wow, I've come far. When we originally started talking about doing this interview a few months ago, I just wouldn't have been able to. I think.
Yeah.
So to be able to even talk about where I'm at now so easily. Like, oh, thank God. Like, I'm really grateful, really grateful.
Well, I had some, a lot of anxiety lately and I had to cancel quite a few interviews, but I'm hopefully starting to get back on it again.
Please do. Great.
I am joined with the fabulous Sarah Coates, who you may know as Marguerite Baker from Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, and Louisa from Resident Evil Village, and other stuff as well. And she's a massive RuPaul's Drag Race fan, and she's been in the show as well. How did you get into RuPaul's Drag Race? Is there any particular reason, or did someone introduce you? How did you get into it?
I started watching, so Jinx Monsoon, Jared Hoffer, I believe season 4, we had done a play together in Seattle. So he left the play to go do RuPaul's Drag Race. Mm-hmm. And they had to recast him. And so we had met there, and then, and so I was like, of course, I'm going to support my friend on this show.
I'm joined here by the voice of Evelyn from Resident Evil 7 Biohazard and Angie the doll from Resident Evil Village. So how do you relate to Angie and even Evelyn?
How do I relate to them?
Yeah.
Well, I find it best you have to bring so much of yourself to any character, especially a villain, only because nobody's actually a villain in their own story, right? We all think we're the hero, regardless. So, and that's true of all humans, I suppose.
Hello, Michelle Lukes. Thank you so much for joining me again. Welcome back to the show. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me again. I'm glad I'm still invited back after the last time.
Oh, you're always welcome back, regardless. How was it holding it in, not being able to, shout out to the world that you're on Resident Evil?
some ways you just get so used to not talking about it. But in other ways, it's like you're always worried you're going to fuck up because it has to be strictly enforced. And so you get to a point where you're like almost scared to say anything at all because you don't want to get into trouble.
So if you could go back in time, what era would you go back to? Or if you want to go forward as well?
I would go back. I would definitely go back, probably like the 1920s. I've always, there's something about like